to our show. Thanks for coming in today. I'm so excited to feature amazing influencers who are making such a positive difference in our world today. And today on the show, I'm so excited to have John Atkinson again. Hi, John. This is our
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Excited to be here in part two and
I
looking
know.
forward to sharing more.
I know. It was so much fun. We should have our own podcast, maybe. We have so much to talk about. We are on a time constraint, so let's try to get it done today. All right, here we go. John, if you missed John's our first episode, it's so good. We talked about John's career as a soccer player, and he started, oh my gosh, when you were like little. What were you in second grade?
Like 5 years old.
Oh, 5. Oh yeah, kindergarten.
Yeah, kindergarten. Yeah.
Yep. You just learned how to read, and then you're like, give me a ball. No.
Yeah, exactly.
And then and we talked about his whole career, oh my gosh, in soccer, and how he went to travel abroad, and you went and you played in Europe. Just give us a little recap on your soccer career before we jump into how that segued into your.
Yeah, so exactly what Kristin's saying. If you guys didn't catch our very first podcast together, definitely check that out. But yeah, so my first experiences with soccer started out at 5 years old. I started at the recreational level and inspired by my older siblings, and made it through. And at 11, I had to make a decision to continue the recreational side or make the jump to club. So I was, a toss-up, because here compared to Europe is you pay to play here. And that's a huge difference. There's a lot of politics. Your parents are paying for you. They're getting the gear, anything from the cleats to, hey, we're playing this tournament in Minnesota or something, and, the flights and everything. So it's really, it gets up there real quick. And as an 11-year-old, you're kind of like, how serious am I? You don't really realize how much money it is. Your parents just want you to be happy, and, things like that. So I got the opportunity to play here, located here in Southern California, such a hotbed of talent, as you know, with sports, career-wise, business in general. And it was just, a great opportunity to play club at such a younger age. But still, compared to Europe, it's very behind in the process. They start at 4 or 5, and they sign professional player kids at 9 years old. So it's just kind of eye-opening for me at 11. And we talked about last episode, my dad's best friend who lives in England was sending me these jerseys. I didn't have any idea what they were. And one day I asked my dad, I'm like, hey, what's this jersey? And they said, oh, it's Colin's local team, Southampton. And I found out they play in the top division in England, which, as some of you might know, it's, the largest sports league in the world as far as money and revenue. And so I was like, okay, like, this is incredible, So that's when my passion really grew. So I continued to play club, and at 14, I got exposed to a guy from the East Coast, came out here, did a special training, and he kind of made an all-star team of all the best players from, the club teams from anywhere from San Diego up to LA. And these prestigious local clubs have produced so many great players. So I was in a training camp, kind of, we talked about last episode, I would say kind of like my fear of tryouts. Anybody has a fear of tryouts. Am I doing well? Is my peer, and I'm super competitive. So, you're trying to figure out how you're going to stand out. And I did enough to make this European, type all-star team. So we headed over to Europe, and that was my first exposure to European soccer. And we played in Switzerland, Germany, Italy, and Austria. Incredible experience, eye-opening to similar if like Europeans came over here and played American football. Maybe it's not that big over in Europe, and they come over here and it's like very eye-opening. So that was similar to my experience. So I came back, played locally here in Southern California at Santa Margarita High School. We had a great squad over there over 10 years prior to me getting there. It was kind of a tradition, born and raised Catholic. My three sisters went there. So I, decided to go there. One of the things obviously that was attractive was the soccer team. So my sophomore year, came back that summer. I came back from Europe going into my freshman year, made JV as a freshman, which was huge for the caliber of, the program. And only 3 freshmen made the JV team. So it was pretty incredible experience going into that. And then sophomore year, that's when it all happened, made varsity. We won CIF and state, which, as you know, with sports around here is huge and so hard to do.
Yeah.
And so through that process, soccer is still so new, and I was trying to, make it professionally. Through my experiences in Europe, came back recharged at 14, leading up to, your prime soccer years of a young late teenager where you develop at an exponential level. So luckily for me, I was surrounded by great coaching, and I just was like, growing up, I was like, I'm going to play pro. After 11, 12 years old, when my dad's best friend sent those jerseys over, we talked about it last episode, it was my first exposure traveling in general at age 12 to England for 3 weeks. Yeah. And even after that, it's like everything has tied into my life up to this point, which you reflect, you introspect, and you're kind of like, wow, like how did all these things line up that we're talking about, the traveling, the soccer, and the health and wellness, it all ties in together. So I took all that inspiration over those trips, and I was like, I need to make it pro, but soccer's so young here. And the MLS, which is the professional league here, decided to make all these academy teams, and Los Angeles Galaxy was making their first academy team. So I, came up to 2 options in the road, a fork in the road of, do I continue to play club locally? I was playing well. I was really well known. I was starting every game. It was pretty easy to get in the squad. There was competition, but it wasn't, I was up against these phenomenal players, which at that level you want to be, every practice pushed and pushed. Mm-hmm. So Galaxy opened up this open tryout for them to try a tournament out in Denver, and same thing as tryouts. I'm, where am I in the pecking order? At that time I was playing left defender. I'm naturally left-footed, which, thank God, that was something that a lot of people aren't, left-footed, you stand out. Most people are right-footed. So I was dynamic in that, and that over my career made me stand out. And I was incredible passer of the ball. Loved, the question of, would you rather score or would you rather assist? I think I would rather assist, because some of those incredible plays that you see at the pro level or that I've done over my career stand out to me, and those resonate to me rather than a goal. Goals are great, but what's the build up to that important piece of the game? So they did these tryouts. I was in high school, so imagine, I'm juggling schoolwork, going into my junior. I just did CIF state. Everything's flowing, and I got to be part of this Sun Cup team out in Denver, and it was the top 10 MLS teams, like almost the original. And MLS is still so new. Early 90s it started, and so Los Angeles Galaxy had these open tryouts. So I tried out. It was about 7 weeks long. Each time I'm like, going with my dad, to back it up. My parents' biggest supporters, and so much learned from both of us. And that's why now our relationship is so great, and family means so much to me. And so just going with my dad, doing the process, putting in the work, and just leaving it out on the field, got all the way down and made the Sun Cup like all-star team. went out to Denver. We had great exposures to all these professional teams across the nation. When that was finished, it was about 3 games. We, didn't do so well later, in the group play. But it was an incredible, fantastic experience. So on the way back, they said, hey, just want to give you a heads up. We're going to start an academy team similar to Europe. We recommend you guys, or you trying out, or the players that went on this trip to try out. And you not saying you were going to make it, but we know you, and the coaches think highly of you, so come out. So I went to my club team coach and I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And he's like, all right, go for it. And there's about 7 or 8 of us from my local club team, and we were carpooling, and we kind of touched on it last episode.
Yeah.
Each week it was like a 2 months process, and it was, the rules for academy is in a 75-mile radius, you could get any player. So that's like literally, as you know, all the way down to San Diego, up to this Central Coast, out to almost not Vegas, but the desert area.
Yeah.
So it just was what I was so kind of inspired about, or just kind of like, wow, this is so great to be a part of, like the grassroots of historical soccer here in the US, is the amount of talent they could get in that 75-mile radius. Everyone was flat. Even Europeans were like calling up and, hey, if I live with my friend here, and they're like, no, and it was a lot of people coming, even as we're so close to the border, up from Mexico. Hey, I played on these professional teams. Can I my cousin lives, and they're kind of like, hey, no, you have to have permanent residency. And that's similar to Europe, is you have to live within 2 hours of that training facility. So there's a lot that went into it, with carpooling up with my teammates each week. There was someone that wasn't in the car. So that was kind of like, wow, all right, this is real. My buddy, my teammate's gone. And I made it down. There was two left, my teammate and I. And we were still playing club and doing the tournaments on top of that. And my club coach, hey, put the pressure and said, hey, we got to fill your spot. And, I understand that. And I had to go to the LA Galaxy, believe it or not, and be like, where do I, stand in the tryout process, which is awkward at a, 16-year-old,
right.
These, professional coaches saying, hey, did I make it or did I not? Putting pressure. And I clearly remember the English guy goes, hey, don't worry about your club coach. You made the team, and don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Congratulations, John. And, keep working hard. So that was incredible alone. And it just escalated from there. So not only was I in high school, but I was going up to at the time, Home Depot Center, the training facility for Los Angeles, 3 times a week. So get off at school. Sometimes the commute was 2 hours, sometimes less. Get home by 8 or 9. You have to study. So it was like already in college, and that whole experience for about almost close to 3 years was just, life-changing for me, the environment. But I knew, Kristin, in my heart of hearts and my gut, that it was still too early, I knew at some point it was like, there's going to be a point where some of these guys I play with are going to make it, hoping it's me. I'm putting in the work, not sure how it's going to happen, but we were still pushing so much college sports, specifically in soccer, because there's so many avenues to become a pro. And then so I didn't play my senior year, which was fine because I was, high school soccer or professional soccer. Anybody would pick the professional environment. And so played, really well. We actually did an England tour, which we played the best, teams. Yeah. Manchester City, West Ham, Norwich City. What was the other one? Ipswich Town. These were all Premier League teams at that time. And we played their equivalent. But it's just so different. And some of the players, weren't exposed. I was exposed at 14. They come up, they're like, wow, these guys know how to tackle. They're clean players. They're rough, but good. So you could see why it's their number one sport and every other country's number one sport, because they do take it so seriously at a very young age, you know. And if you're good enough, you're going to get scouted, you're going to get spotted, where here in America, it's still like, okay, this guy's kind of good, let's wait. But it's definitely changed. So to be part of that historical moment, and then there was only 2 teams, so I was playing up a year my first year, so that was kind of scary for me. Each
Wow.
time I showed up, I'm like, these guys are ex, you know, U.S. national youth players that played, you know, on the U16 national team. You know, these are big time players, and at some point you have to just say, hey, you know, I'm good enough, you know. So it's definitely a mentality shift of showing up every practice, and
Wow.
any job really. And it's kind of instilled in me is like, you could be kind of let go, you know, the kind of like the at will employer. You know, it's like at any moment you could be like, all right, you did your best, you know, we don't need your services. So it's definitely different than Europe. Europe's cutthroat. You're on an academy team, you might be the star from 9 years old to 16, you get your contract, and then you're cut loose. Doesn't mean they don't continue to play, but
Right.
that whole mixture, which I'm talking about, the soccer and the travel exposures, really got me going into thinking, how can I travel more? You know, and that's the next segment of,
Right.
how is Globetrot John born? And everyone's probably thinking, you didn't touch on it last, you know, a little bit, but what's
Yeah.
Globetrot John, you know?
Right.
And so we touched on last episode, you know, I didn't make it professionally. There was only one player out of, I want to say 40 kids that got a professional contract, but we all had to play college. So he actually got a professional contract based on, yeah, his experience at the younger age in the youth academy, but what he did in college. So my college career didn't go as how I planned. It was going well, and then got an injury. And as you know, with injuries, sometimes, you know, the comeback, you know,
Yeah.
is better than the setback, or you're never the same. So mine was more, you're never the same. It was an MCL sprain, and basically they were saying, hey, you should have, you know, it would have been better for you if you know, tore it, because surgery, you just fuse it back. A sprain's stretched out, you know, similar to like ankle. You know, someone strains their ankle, they're more vulnerable to sprain it more and more, and then if they break it, at least it's stronger. I mean, it sounds worse, but you ask any athletic trainer, that's kind of the thought process behind that. So that kind of, that moment in time we kind of hit on last episode was a downtime for me. So after, you know, Fullerton, I went to Cal State Fullerton, came home, you know, it was a wake-up call. Was $42,000 in debt, was changing my major so many times that I was very disinterested in pursuing school. So, you know, I had a hard conversation with my mom over dinner and said, hey, I'm not happy. Soccer's gone. I'm not motivated. I don't, you know, I'm basically miserable, and broke down and cried. You know, obviously soccer was such a big thing in my life, and I was defined by that, by not just myself, but my peers, which is fine. But looking back, it's like you kind of, and I'm doing it better now as I, you know, grow with age and wisdom, is you want to expand, you know, your life more. You know, you don't want to be defined by one thing. You want to, you know, expand different avenues. And you know, the saying is well-rounded, but
Right.
you want to go your own route. You don't want to do something you're not interested in, but definitely find different passions, and really reinvent yourself. And that's the key to life. I think with, you know, most of your uh, great interviews on here is people that have, you know, gone from maybe a negative situation to more positive, and, you know, and have learned from that. And that's knowing your story and telling your story, because, you know, the saying kind of is like, your story could be a survival kit for someone else, or, hey, there's other people around that have the similar situation. I could do it too. So at that moment, I was kind of unmotivated. I would say I was, severely depressed. And at that moment, I didn't know I was, and I don't think I touched on it last episode, but I had a dear friend that was a psychiatrist, and I broke down to him one time, and hey, I need some help, and you're a psychiatrist. Is there anybody I could go see? And he linked me up with a therapist, and I'm a huge advocate for mental health, and I don't think it's talked about that much here in the States. It's more and more, a lot of big time influencers or athletes have come out and said, hey, these are my problems, these are my addictions, or things like that, and have said they've gotten help multiple times or are in the process. It's lifelong. So I got linked up with a great therapist. It was a different type of therapy called like short-term dynamic therapy, and it really gets down to the core of your emotions. And it worked on, because a lot of people describe their emotions on broader terms, like I'm anxious, or I'm angry, or I'm sad, or I'm happy. Well, what does that mean to you? What are you feeling? How does that make you feel? So this therapy was very different than a lot of people do nowadays or have, is talk therapy. Let's talk about it. But this really gets you to, dive deeper into your unconscious and clean that up. And it's all due to childhood things, teenage years, and young adult years. Obviously, I'll be 29 in September. So leading up to that point, it was 21, 22 years of life. But a lot of people wait a long time because we're not taught to, hey, mental health is important, and if you don't clean that up later in life, things come out and people are like, whoa, I didn't know this side of you, or they don't even know.
Right.
So I worked on that, and it was phenomenal, Kristin. That part was life-changing. And so to circle back around, I kind of got refocused. I got into the food industry. We kind of touched on about that. I came home. I was depressed. My mom, you got to get a job. I moved home. I had $42,000 in debt. I was anxious. My relationship with money was like, what do I even have fun with my friends? What should I take a loan out to pay? Like, I don't even know, because even that's not taught in school. There's so many things that weren't taught in school. And I go, hey, let me just take that, pain of what I'm feeling and get something out of it, and that was applying myself at Whole Foods Market. And we touched on that, and it opened up right down the street. And, I'm big on spirituality. Obviously, we're both Christians, but it's, perfect timing as far as the guy upstairs going, hey, this store's opening, and I've seen that throughout my life, is things line up, not your plan, but his plan, and that's huge for me. So it was just one of those things. Let me just apply this. And obviously I have that inner athlete. I'm going to work hard, and I really flourished. And I realized getting out in the world, I wasn't holding myself back, and I'm really, in life, we're the only ones that do hold ourselves back. No one else, and we could get caught up on people's comments and things like that. But the more we don't judge ourselves and just go out and experiment and fail hard or succeed really well. But I learned so much through my failures at Whole Foods on, hey, I'm working with people that were 30 plus years in the industry. I came in, was a workhorse, worked extremely hard, worked my way up, and into these different roles in about a 2-year span. So I was using that pain on the outside of the four walls, not really sharing. And then that's when outside the four walls, I saw that therapist, and that was like kind of unlocking my mind to, hey, you could fulfill your potential. You could do anything in life, and it's really up to you. And so that was life changing. And then paralleling with my opportunities at the store and just gaining trust from, you know, the leaders that were above me and my mentors led me to, hey, I'm starting to pay off my debt. Like I started to get back in my groove. You know, I was like, man, I'm feeling
Yeah.
good. I'm moving up. I'm doing something, you know, and I think that's so important is really, we might not like our jobs all the time, or we might not like certain situations, but if we add purpose and positivity,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe in those days that, I mean, not every day is great, as we all know, but if we
Right.
have that positive mindset, like we could do it, I could do it, if they could do it, I could do it, you know, not necessarily on a comparison thing, but hey, you know, people have been in my situation before, let's grind, let's do it. Obviously there's days where you don't want to do it, which
Right.
is totally fine, that's life, you know, not all days are great. But when you gain, I see it as those early years out of college and out of this, you know, experience of soccer, I would say a chapter closes and
Mm.
this new chapter open. I was gaining so much momentum that I was like, nothing can stop me. You know, I
Yeah.
see the top, I see this, you know, team leader position, assistant team. I got to go get that, you know, and once you gain that momentum, people notice, you know, and the people you need to follow are the people that are, you know, cheering you on and giving that positivity back to you. Otherwise, you know, you get bogged down, you get held back, and you care too much about what people think. And
Yeah.
I was fortunate to not be sucked into like that abyss of thinking.
Yeah.
um, and what I learned in therapy is like your potential is so like, once you unlock that out of your brain and clean up your past of whatever obstacles we've all been through, you know, you're basically your story of what you're telling yourself you can't do. Once you unlock that, it's like, what can I do? You know, I want to do
Yeah.
this. I want, you know, you become so fired up and you have so much determination to go out there, and you learn so much. And, you know, a big word flying around right now and like why in business or life is the word grit. You know, people
Yeah.
that have been through a lot of things, they get layers of grit. And I feel like where I'm at now is there's so many layers of grit, but there's even more layers to be have in the future, you know. And it's really up to you on, I'm big on personal development, which coincides with wellness. You know, if you're not feeling
Yeah.
good, you're not going to continue to personal develop. So the Whole Foods experience, incredible. I was a huge cook growing up. My dad would take me to the grocery store. I knew a lot of product knowledge right away, but as a lot of people know, new job, new industry, first job in the produce industry, it's intimidating. To be honest, sunny California is the place to be for produce. A lot of we're an ag, you know, state. There's a lot of great products coming out of our state to supply to the rest of the country. But to learn, you know, seasonality when it's sunny basically year round, or just interesting items, you know, the tropical category coming in from South America, or seeing a dragon fruit for the first time and going, what, you know, it's really the beauty on the inside when it looks all ugly and funky, you know. It's just, that experience was very rewarding to me. So I gained all that momentum, like I'm saying, and I came to another fork in the road, and I was like, had an opportunity to go on the distribution side. So Whole Foods is the retail side, and there's so much behind it. We talked about it last episode, from like the farm to the distribution center, to the book I was reading, Thanks a Thousand. So that process of getting it to the stand and then to the customer picking it is just incredible. So I love that story. I was, you know, moving up quickly before into a leadership role. I was like the buyer for all the produce in our department, which is a huge responsibility and huge on relationship building, and, you know, calling these local farms, hey, how many blueberries do you have, or we need juice or orange, you know, and just getting those relationships at such a young age helped
Wow.
me step by step, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as you know, like with our families, it's so important to build rapport and relationships. Our both our parents are so good at that, and relationship building and definitely storytelling. And um, that's what I've learned as I've gotten older, is if you could mesh those two together, like, and tell your story and build relationships with all ages, you could go places. So
Yeah.
I was building those relationships. Go ahead.
And I love that, the fact that, when you're telling a story, the audience doesn't know you, but you've always been so passionate about food, you and your
Mm-hmm.
dad, and I remember when
Yeah.
you would go to the farmer's market, or we'd come over and visit, and your dad would always have something new for us to try.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was always so great, because it was an adventure, and I
Mm-hmm.
know that food's always been a passion for your family and for ours too. But I just remember I remember you'd light up, when we
Uh-huh.
talked about different foods and things like that. That was that was really a big passion for you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and especially to touch on it during the holidays, whether it's
yeah,
Thanksgiving, we were kind of, non-traditional in some dishes, like, hey, we're gonna make
yeah,
something else, and people are like, what are
right.
you making? Or, that's not traditional Thanksgiving, or but yeah, so it
And
just
our visitors didn't understand our. They thought
yeah.
they were visiting. They had to go along with it. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, just that through those experiences really gain that momentum to that next step of, hey, I could really reach my potential. Here I'm turning those negative things that I thought, but in retrospect, those were my strengths, because I was using those situations, the $42,000 in debt, the way I was feeling depressed, the anger and sadness buildup of soccer being finished, but also looking on, similar to what this is called, on the bright side of things, and
Mm-hmm.
really saying, hey, soccer has given me so much. Why can't I use that platform and that experience to something else,
Mm-hmm.
And that was really into the produce. And then the produce and the passion for food, as you know, and most of our viewers know, is around the world, just different cultures, how they look at food, how do they, you know, um, make their food for their families, and sharing food is so intimate, and you really get to know someone through those choices. So I'm a big cook, as we've talked about. I love cooking, and I just felt so fortunate to be in a perishable department, and that first day being assigned the produce, what an incredible story and journey it was. And to then eventually be on the distribution side and see how much goes into it that people don't even think before it gets to your store and you're taking it home to your family. And I was just
Yeah.
so like full of gratitude and wow, and 330 million people across the US. How do we feed these people? What are we doing with our food waste? We're utilizing, believe it or not, food banks, but we're still having so much food that's not consumed, which is definitely sad, but it's incredible to learn. We do have a system set up, um, and on that produce distribution side, to really know a different part of the business. Um, and then that went into a situation where I was covering Arizona and Las Vegas territories in San Diego, which, as you know, Arizona, Vegas is completely different than our area over here in California. So that situation alone, learning those people, making those connections, learning about them, and being the third party distributor and going into their market, and then eventually their market not doing well and basically going bankrupt. That was eye opening at a young age to see that. And from that experience, I knew myself. So I was like, I can't go back to those closed off mindset, back to square one that I was feeling when I finished soccer. Because someone could easily, I'm young, but I'm looking around at my job, people with families are crying. Do I even, because it was 90% of our business was this one account. And to see that, I was like, I got to make a decision. What's best for me, And I think a lot of people sometimes, there's a saying out there is like the golden handcuffs, and people just get into certain circumstances, or they buy into a lifestyle and they get caught up in the lifestyle of whatever the case may be, and they can't get out of it because they have these handcuffs. So I thought right off the bat, I'm young, I don't have a family, and I need to make a decision here. So believe it or not, health came into that picture for me. I was so stressed out. I was, just through so much learning around me, and I'm definitely a feeler. Obviously I'm extrovert, but I'm also introvert. So like I need my time to recharge. And I was always out on the road. I was out of our LA office, just seeing what was transpiring. And it was just really sad. And so I had to make a decision, and my own body made my own decision, and one day I woke up and my kidneys, it was, pretty graphic as far as, going to the restroom and seeing what was in the toilet. And I just was like, there's blood in the toilet. What's going on? Like something's wrong. I can't, I'm so young to have this. So I go to the doctor and they ran tests, and it was affecting my kidneys. So back in 2016, I had kidney surgery, and that, Kristin, was like really the point where I was like, I need to fulfill my potential. That was the point where I was like, I can no longer just live, I got to go after my potential, and I have to go after it hard. Otherwise, life's short. I'm not gonna, I don't want to feel like I've regretting anything, and I haven't, and a lot of us have, but I feel fortunate that I see the world and my life as like everything, as cliche, everything has happened for a reason up to that point. And so I had surgery. I was again, back to the mentality is like, how do you get out of that? If I didn't have that therapy, if I didn't have that mental, outing as far as getting healthy mentally, I don't think I could have dealt with that and gone through that and really came out, even more positive about life and, what I expect out of myself. So at that point I was kind of, obviously your mind always plays games, and I have this saying is you have an internal thermostat. If you turn on your air conditioning, we're sunny here all the time, it might go down to 68, but it could creep back up to 70. We all have that, and it's called our comfort zone. We all get out of our comfort zone, but we slowly want to get back into it. And I looked at it and I go, wow, I'm not feeling that well. I'm not 100% healthy. I just had this major surgery. I've never had a surgery in my life. What's going on? I need to get healthy, and right then and there I go, what's the first thing that pops into your mind, John? I go, travel. I've traveled all this point, but I haven't traveled how I wanted to. And not saying all the experiences before that with my dad traveling, with the soccer, I was grateful for that. But I was thinking, like, I'm getting older, I'm in the workforce now. Like, it's always been a dream for me just to take off and travel. How am I going to do that? So I was still in debt, but I was from that Charlie's, from the distribution job, I was making better money, and then had the surgery and I fell into a new job. So here I had surgery, and my new employer didn't even know I had surgery. I mean, I kept things under wrap, and I wasn't out for, someone might listen to me like, why did you hold that back from your employer? Because I didn't think I needed to let them know, because it wasn't as severe as like I was taking 6 months off, it was outpatient. I was better, but I was struggling. I had a desk job, and but I was positive. It was a new beginning. It's a new start. I was in a new industry, food packaging, and I'm trying to learn I worked for a broker, and we represented 25 manufacturers across the U.S. from, hot cups for coffee to-go bags to fork and cutlery kits to, the mats behind the bar that the bartenders stand on. So it was very interesting industry. And so I was like, wow, and how that happened too was, a blessing in disguise. And the first 6 months, if you ask me, like, how did it go? I just was trying to survive. But at the same time, I was trying to learn the product. I had my goals of traveling later on. And I need to learn this product to get out to outside sales, to be able to make more money, to be able to fulfill my dream of travel.
Yeah.
So I learned quickly, and they had no idea what was going on outside the four walls. And I love that. And I just was I'm always super professional, but I have, a lot of empathy for, because I've been in leadership. I know, hey, if someone's just not in a groove, you ask them, hey, what's going on? Just checking in. They want to share, good. Otherwise, I always say what happens outside the four walls stays outside the four walls. No one has to know, because you have your support team outside of work. And so I worked my way up. I did phenomenal. My first year, I was, inside sales, again, relationship building, getting to know our regional managers, getting to know our product, getting to know what basically it's funny, we were basically selling trash for millions of dollars, believe it or not, but it's something people always need. So when, like right now with COVID going on, we touched on it last episode, is to go orders, the bag, the napkins, the cutlery, the fork, knife, the container, the lid, Starbucks, the hot cup, the sleeve, all these things that on a consumer level, you're just like, it's my coffee, or it's my burrito from wherever, or my sandwich wrap, but people, concepts spend millions, or even mom and pop thousands of dollars to invest in that. So we kind of touched on who's winning right now in COVID. Yeah. Who's winning right in COVID right now are those concepts that were doing really well with food to go orders, Uber Eats, grabbing or Grubhub, all those delivery services. Who was winning that before COVID went down? And you'll see right now, all those concepts that invested early in the to-go takeout experience are winning right now. And those are the ones that are going to survive. And it is sad. We touched on like the mom and pop shops that like, they're just trying to pay the bills. They might be really in the red, which is sad. But what I learned in that industry is concepts from mom and pop to high velocity chains. It's about a 2-year life. If you're not making it 2 years or more, and you start losing, people spend thousands, even millions of dollars on concepts, on real estate, on locations, on all these things, and it could be finished in 2 years. So the food industry is one of the most cutthroat industries. There's not a lot of margin. There's not a lot of money in that. So I learned a lot through those experiences, and just plastic alone. And that ties into what I'm doing now, and we'll get to that. But it just was incredible, Kristin, as far as, okay, here we're selling trash. We're representing all these manufacturers to get into distribution, and then once into distribution, into the end user's hand. And so much politics go into that. You have one concept using this distributor. Oh, wait, they're getting a better price. So I learned so much just in business in general that I always go back to it, is you don't learn a lot of that in school. You get the tools. And I'm not saying I'm not an advocate for, degrees, because I am. If you're, to the younger audience here, go get your degree, take your time. There is no rush it's only your journey. And I think if I was told that when I was at Fullerton is, hey, why don't you rethink this? Like, take some time. It was almost like you needed like a mini vacation, like take 2 weeks, John, and just disconnect and really, because that at the moment, there's a saying is like, don't make any high level decisions when you're, not in the right state of mind, but some of those decisions that you do make puts pressure on you to make things happen, to put you into action. So it's a catch-22 on that. But yeah, so.
And I felt like in school too, you didn't have a time like the normal like downtime to think about things because you're a college athlete,
Exactly.
So
And
it's really hard.
Yeah, a lot of people, listening in could be ex-college athletes. It's incredible, like I wouldn't say my strong suit was school, and that was kind of like my own story now looking back at it. But I didn't truly have a passion for what I was like gonna get a degree in. So that's why I think it didn't work out for me. If I went back right now, probably, and there's, as people say, there's always time for it too. But at this stage in my life, it's not a priority. But yeah, so it just how everything has meshed together through that leading up to the food packaging, and then all of a sudden, like paying off my so I'm like up to this point, it's like a roller coaster ride. It's like, people are saying, how did you do it? How did you travel? Like, if I go more in depth, which I am with you, is like, it's a journey, it's not all, a wonderful experience. Like, oh wow, John's traveled the world, leading up to it. It was, as I said, grit. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears leading up to it. Like, but the thing that stood out to me is I never quit on myself. I never quit my decision, and it fired me up even more because I was like, okay, this didn't work out, but what could I do next? Like, and I was trying to find things that would light me up. And when you do find what you enjoy, it just makes it that much better, And so even through the food packaging, I was like fired up. I was like trying to move up. I did move up to outside sales. Incredible. I had my own territory, from San Luis Obispo down to San Diego, out to the desert. Incredible experience. A lot of, experiences through that. And just from looking at that, we were a small company. So I always look, and I think it goes back, Kristin, to my birth order. We kind of touched on is I'm the youngest. So I like in my life, I've always hung out with people older than I am or connected. Not saying I don't connect with my age group, but I've always gained wisdom from, hanging out with people or just looking at how people are living their lives. It doesn't mean I want to replicate that, or maybe I do. But I saw in that company, I was like, okay, people are, have a great, like I said, the golden handcuffs. They've bought in, they're making somewhat of good money. Have a family, they have kids, they have a house, they have, the American dream, but at the gut feeling and at the mental side, I was like, but I don't want to get into that. I don't want to commit to that because I know if I commit to that, I'm not living out my potential, and I know God's plan is bigger for me, and to have faith in that, in those moments it's definitely scary, but you have to surrender and say, hey, yeah, I have my idea of my plan, but there's a bigger one of that. And, to our followers, tuning in, it's like, we all come from different backgrounds on religion or spirituality, but whatever the case may be and where you stand in that, you have to realize, like, at some point you do have to surrender to your process. Otherwise, as you and I both know, once you force something or you force a decision, it's like, sometimes it's really hard to like get out of those situations. So the more you surrender to that, and that process of just life and being patient, the better things turn out. And that's what I mean by that momentum. I was doing that. I was surrendering. I go, okay, if this is the plan, like lead me to the light, you know, because I was in a dark place. And so with the food packaging, it was hitting all those check marks. Like I was debt free, I was banking on this cat, you know, and then I was like, wow, I could really travel right now. Like, but I would only, it would be a short amount of time, you know, and I'm like, I got to do it big, you know, like this has been my lifetime goal. One of them, my passions, you know, I've made it this far to give a gift of travel to myself. And that's how I viewed it. So I started, like I'm saying, is the people you hang around are the biggest influences in your life. And there's a saying is like the 5 people that you hang around the most is like the average, you know, of you, right? So whoever you're hanging out with or following or reading about. So I really dug deeper into following these travelers that have already laid the groundwork, you know, and that's a lot as far as in life in general. Like with everything going on, people staying at home right now during COVID, is like tap into your resources, you know, like if you looked at like Grandpa Skipper's generation or even before, like they didn't have these tools to tap in to learn. Like you could type into Google, how do I do this? How do I learn this? YouTube, you know, people have TV like this, you know, everyone's learning something. So I tapped into that and I got this book, How to Travel Off $50 a Day. And I just got the, you know, the base skeleton of travel. And I was tuning into that. I was plugging into that. And it was one of those things where I wanted to come with a budget, but I didn't, you know, I wanted to have that flexibility. So I read this book. I was like, what does $50 even come out for a year, you know? And it comes out to 18,250, I believe. And yeah, and that's a lot of money. And but like we talked on the first episode, is what sacrifices do you make, right? As a young person, gone to college, out of college, the only reason I've never lived alone or out on my own would be the $42,000 in debt. And when people could say, "Oh, well, I did that and I paid it." Well, yeah, that was your decision, but I felt like I was handcuffed, you know, and I didn't want to feel like, okay, I have now this rent to pay, maybe a car loan and this and that, and add to it. Because I have friends that are still, John, how are you debt free? I go, I just made it a priority. I made sacrifices. I live with my family. I enjoy that. I know that won't be around forever. You know, my parents are getting older. Those relationships change. It's gotten so, like, not so much better, but I would say not so much is not the word. I would say it's different as far as, you know, them, you know, they're, sorry, I'm losing the word.
It's enriched.
It's enriched. It's enriched from being the child to them to now being a son and a friend, but also having that respectful boundary of, you know, being their child. So it's so enriched, and through the travels has, you know, been enriched through that, with my, you know, my mom joining me out and traveling, and my dad, you know, throughout the years. So but yeah, I had to make sacrifices. So I saved up this, you know, I saved about 20,000, and I was having all this success in the outside sales. My boss was like, yeah, we have a position in NorCal. We have this position in Utah, and nothing happened. But again, I was surrendering to the process of, this is all meaning something, that the priority is travel, you know, and if we're more aware of ourselves and the things that haven't worked out, and really spin it back around and go, I'm so thankful that didn't work out, then it's like, boom, it's an moment that you're just like, I'm meant to go out there. So I sat down with my boss and I was like, hey, travel's been always my passion. And, you know, I'm going to be going traveling for a year. And here, you know, here's my two. And he was just like, because I was doing well. He had a plan for me, but I had something bigger for myself that I thought, I could fulfill this potential. So
Mm-hmm.
gave my 2 weeks, enjoyed some family time. And in March of 2018, I, I jumped and traveled for almost 9 months, and the most incredible, enriching experience of my life. And leading up to that, so much, research on how to do it. But it all tied in, like I'm saying, it's all meshing in. I had these experiences early on at 12, so I knew how to navigate. I learned from my dad. It's like, how do you take public transportation? My dad was born and raised in San Francisco, so many summers we would go up there, and I would just learn different things, and those accumulate over so many years to doing it. And not saying I was an expert, but I was, experienced. But you get out on the road and you're like, I'm by myself. For me, my biggest thing was, again, connecting with people, but also connecting with complete strangers. I was doing the hostel lifestyle. I was going to hostel to hostel to hostel. It's like, you might go in there and, I tell people, some hostels you might need to rest, or you might just, be away. And other hostels, it's like you want to be, social, or, tap into people there that have experienced the same things as you. Um, so travel changes you so much, and it's really a gift to yourself. And a lot of people ask, like, why would you travel solo? And I go, well, you're never alone. If you think about it, you like I just said, you choose how you want to travel. And my first thing when people say, well, how do I do it, this and that, I go, how do you want to travel? And they go, okay, with my boyfriend or husband or wife or this or my family. And I go, okay. And you get to the root of how they want to travel, and that really, gains insight on where they should try to travel, or what's something that would interest them all, or just one, a good balance. So, but with solo travel, it's like you have all this flexibility of,
Right.
you don't have to wait for family or friends that said, John, I'll meet you, or hey, why don't you wait for me? And at the time I didn't have a girlfriend, so nothing tied down as far as, hey, I wanted, when the biggest thing I hear is, like, when couples travel, they want to do different things, but it's coming to an agreement to do, the same thing. So I didn't have any of that. So I was like, this is incredible, and I flew from here to New York to see my best friend. And then boom, I was gone in Europe first for about, I want to say 4 months. And then, from there, like, the highlight of that part segment would be, I don't know, there's so many, but the ones that is, Portugal is kind of like a dark horse of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the cheaper countries in Western Europe, and just the hospitality they have. I got to go out to a place called Cabo de Roca, which is the westernmost tip of Europe. Beautiful. There's, the ocean's right there, but just so friendly and
Mm-hmm.
so for tourism. So obviously we have COVID going on, but anybody listening right now, I think you should definitely look into Portugal if you're looking for, a great experience. And then from there, I went into Spain, and, those that have been to Spain, it's incredible. Just the lifestyle, the easy flow, take your rest, your siestas when you need to. And just the family oriented. And then obviously with my background with soccer, I got to go to Barcelona, which maybe a lot of our viewers know Barcelona as far as they're known for the soccer team. But a fun fact about Barcelona is they weren't really on the map till the 92 Olympics.
Oh, wow.
And they were
Really?
just known as a port city.
Mm.
And they actually built a 3-mile stretch of the current beach to, you know, get the people to enjoy the experience. So ever since the 92
Wow.
Olympics, Barcelona was put on the map for that. So they did a great job. I've been to the Olympic stadium, and I guess not ruins, but you know how it is. It's like cities have the Olympics, and then it goes all, ghost town and things like that. So, but yeah, I would say those two were the first highlight. Greece or Croatia was incredible. Obviously, it's gained popularity with all you Game of Thrones, uh, people out there. I mean, I'm not into that, but when I was there, they're like, "Are you gonna do?" I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to be a local, and that's how I travel, is try to get that local experience, and try to see what's going on with that. So, and then I made it out to Asia for 10 countries.
Oh my
And
God.
the highlight definitely was seeing your sister and Johnny, Michelle and John in Lebanon, and
Yeah.
just their incredible work they're doing in the Middle East as missionaries. And the highlight of that was going into the Bekaa Valley, which is all the about 300,000 Syrian refugees, and getting to play soccer with the kids, but also seeing the work Michelle's done with the women of the Middle East, and just empowering them more, and to make decisions and how to raise babies, and be the mother figure that we know in our country that women can be, and women are so great, and to tap into those resources. So out of Asia, I would say Japan, Vietnam, Taiwan were my favorites.
Wow.
Kind of like a dark horse would be like, I went to Cambodia and Laos, incredible countries as well. But Japan kind of ties into what I'm doing now. So here I have this incredible 8 month, or I did 6 months in Europe, 2.5 in Asia. And there was a common theme, Kristin, that throughout that whole trip is, before I left, I go, "Hey, Mom, I'm in the food industry, or I was in the food industry, but I have a feeling the next big thing is water." And she
Oh,
goes, "What?" And I go, "Yeah, I've been following these locals here out of Corona del Mar that they've been in the business for 10 years, and they're, selling these machines out of Japan that produces the healthiest water in the world for you." And I go to my mom, I go, "If I wasn't traveling, I would be in that business." She goes, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah." I go, "It's so similar to what organics have become in this country. The word organic produce, organic, traceability, basically, because we found out, like, where's this coming from, cleaning products, all the, that's a whole can of worms that we could open, but we won't.
yeah.
But yeah, I just was like, okay, so I have to go to Japan. It wasn't because of the water. I just obviously, I'm a big fan of sushi. I love the culture. Simplicity is my thing. So when I went to Japan, I'm like, no wonder, like, so they're top 3 healthiest country in the world, just how they run their country so efficiently. The hospitality's through the roof. The respect, the respect alone when you go to these restaurants, it's not, and no offense to, the American culture here, but you just know when you get good service here, but it's sometimes you just hear people chirping, or how they handle, restaurant staff here is completely different than over there. If they did the same thing there, they're like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And it's very, in Japan, very art form. So I see it as an art form of life. So, and that's what I learned from going there, and the Eastern mindset versus the Western mindset. And if we, adopt that Eastern mindset a little bit more in the Western world, as we are seeing that, we have the yoga, we have the meditation, kind of taking off, but all probably we'll see in the next, 5 to 10 years, the Eastern mindset really come to life here, because it will be transforming, our whole nation, because we have a lot of, mental health things going on in this country, and so many people to provide it for. And it's, it's easy. It's getting back to basics and simplicity. So this water, so I traveled, and these water theme was going throughout, and go to Japan, see it, going to Vietnam, just Lebanon, like the access to water alone, if you think about it, is incredible. First you think access of food, then it's, water. And there's a saying is not all water is created equal. We could all agree, water tastes different. There's additives. There's different MOs, as far as the bottled water industry. So being in the packaging industry, I've avoided plastic water bottles. Obviously, it was eye-opening out on the road because you have to drink bottled water because you can't trust the tap. So that was eye-opening to me. So I came back and I was like, I need to get in, to something, but I wanted to travel again to Australia. And here again, not to my plan, but surrendering to the process and just to life in general. This January, I connected with the couple I was following on Instagram for about 4 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and she posted something like, if you're interested in health and wellness, and it was like basic. And I'm like, this is exactly what I need. Like, this is, so I commented and she reached out to me and she's like, this is what I do. Do you know what I do? I was like, I've been following you for a while, Priscilla, like you and Colton, you've been in the business for 10 years. Like you've changed thousands of people's lives worldwide. Like you guys are just incredible human beings. And that's my calling is to, inspire, but also help others reach their potential. And, I found that more and more as I, gone through life. And it was a big breakthrough for me when I'm traveling because I was seeing all these signs of it. And through just the connection of, like we've talked about soccer, food, health and wellness, it all intertwines to human needs. So,
Yeah.
and the essentials to live. So I just was like, yeah, like I'm on board. So I went to a live demo. I learned, this machine, originated in Japan, which fired me up. I was like, what? Like, this isn't crazy. I knew it, but I'm like seeing it up on stage produces. Yeah. It produces the healthiest water. It's more than just drinking water. There's 7 different types of water, from drinking water, cooking water. The big one that stood out to me is cleaning your produce, your fruits and veggies in this water that removes all the pesticides, the oil-based pesticides. Being a cook, I was like, I saw the demo of these cherry tomatoes that had all this gunk on it. I'm like, I've been in the industry for 8 years and I've never seen something like this. Tap water won't do it, and to solidify the oil-based pesticides, which was really eye-opening to me. And then like the beauty water for your skin toner, actual acidic water for cleaning products to make your house go green. So like right now with COVID, we've been doing like homemade sanitizer. So it's acidic, but it's all water-based and it does all the same things as hand sanitizer. And actually, if you look into it, hand sanitizer, when it gets into the bloodstream, actually makes things worse for humans and things like that. So I just been loving this time of, timing per se, and just learning through my background of sport and just traveling the world and just seeing it. It's like such a global view. And that goes back to the theme of Trot John, someone that's always traveling and always, I would say, making an impact and a positive one. And, learning through my own life and trying to help others live out their healthiest lives. So it's not miracle water, it's water, it's something this water is so powerful that it's going to get your body back to a healing state to heal itself. So to the viewers viewing this, it's like, it's not going to cure anything, but it's going to get your body back to a healing state to be able to do that on its own. And that's why I love just health and wellness right now, and have always loved it, because the body's incredible. As you know, it's like we all have our health story. Mine was my kidney. I'm on blood pressure medicine. Like when I'm on this water, like I don't drink caffeine anymore. So I've given up my tea. I gave up coffee. That was a personal choice when I got back here. Um, and my sleeping is better. My workouts are better because the thing about this water compared to like bottled water and tap water, at the molecular water, it's smaller. So think of like a chain link fence, right? You throw a softball, and that would be like your tap water or bottled water. It's going to hit back. This water is like BBs. So like it's going to go straight through the fence and get your nutrients. So ever since last October, I've been working out like crazy, and I'm just like, I need to get back into shape, this and that. And I got on this water in January, and just through, I would say, like people think, and I thought it too, and you might agree, is like just because we might like juice or eat salads or whatever we think is healthy, like organic chicken or meat or whatever, we feel healthy. We're actually just consuming that when really we're all made up of water, and we need to be able to utilize that nutrient. So what this water does is, at the molecular level, like I'm saying, it's considered small water. So it's going to give your body so much more nutrients to get back into that healing state. So you're utilizing over just consumption, you know. And we've all felt that we have a bottled water and it's just that heavy, you know, feel in your stomach. This doesn't have that. So it's really been life-changing for me, Kristin. I mean, obviously, you know, you were on a webinar recently, and it's such a new, yeah, it's such a new movement here, as far as, again, with the Western world, and to be again in Southern California, where, you know, there is a huge priority on health and wellness. And I just feel fortunate to, you know, be in the situation that I am, and to have this presented to me in January, not just for my own health, but to share it with others, you know, is huge. And it is the future. Obviously, I'll touch on a few things. When I was in Bali, the plastic water bottles and the trash in those Eastern countries, they have no trash system. So like here in the Western world, we throw it away. We have our blue or black trash can. We wheel it out to the curb. Boom. They don't have that. So you'll see water bottles. You'll see plastic. So even though here in America we're like, oh, I'm buying a plastic water bottle, rethink that, you know, because if you're doing that, someone else across the world's doing it, right? And if we could, in our culture, we have it set up where we can use a reusable water bottle. We can afford a reusable water bottle. The average, and it's an interesting stat. The average person spends about $3,000 on water bottles each year here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that one. Oh,
so, I mean, a lot of people don't think about it, but that all adds up. It's like, okay, $4 here. Oh, I'm at, when sporting events were going on, I need a water. It's like $8, you know, all that adds up. So, to me, it's like, to tie it back into Trot John, it's like that is another part of me. It's like, I want to make that global impact. You know, first I see myself making it domestically here with the water, but like, I know my experiences out abroad, and those connections, you know, with those cultures. And I'm very, very good at that. That's one of my strengths, is connecting with people. Is what a great way to connect with people with something that's so simple yet sophisticated, that makes people think, and to educate them on something that is going to be a trend product, you know. And this is such a new market. And
it is.
yeah, and especially, and I'll touch on this and have you add a few things of your thoughts, is during this COVID time, the number one thing is health and wellness.
It is.
And it's just incredible to see. We've helped, it's probably up, it's rising every day. We've helped about 800 families in the last 2.5 months get these machines into their houses to use. So It's definitely, something that people want to think about. One thing that also got me to buy my machine is I didn't know how bad my water I was drinking sucked. It's like you think you're just like,
Yeah.
this is water, and then it's like, let me test it, and they're like, oh my gosh. So another thing to just touch on is the acidity that we naturally have. We're all acidic. So why the machine is so great is it's alkalized water, and people might viewing this, well, I buy Essentia and this and Trader Joe's. That's man-made. That's not natural. That's like, do you want frozen pizza, Kristin, or do you want fresh pizza?
Right.
Right? There's a huge difference.
There is.
So I try to, when I educate people in general, or just, now with the water, is it's simple, and if health means a lot to you, you're gonna get your machine, because for me, through my experiences, is health is number one. If I don't have my health, I can't do anything, from daily to my future goals to the present moment now. How am I, so your body's 70% water, 90% of people are severely dehydrated. And the saying goes is a gallon a day keeps the doctor away. So
Exactly.
I'll end on that. And if, people are interested more about the travel story, I have a great Instagram account, and also with the water, it's at Trot John. So on Instagram, and that would be the best way to reach out to me if you're interested in learning more about the water. And then also if you have any more, travel questions, because I love helping people with travel questions. It's a lot of people, I feel, we take the same trips. It's like or my family's going here, or you hear like a friend's going, oh, we're going here. It's like, well, have you thought of going maybe to the next city over, or this country that no one knows about, but it's a great experience,
See, you should have a podcast. The travel podcast. Trot John, the podcast. I'll hook you up. You should have live questions.
Live Q&A.
Live Q&A. All right, bring in your travel, which isn't a lot right now, but hopefully we'll be returning.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, and it's just so everything you've talked about. I've just loved like your mindset, being positive, and embracing the process, like you talked about, and I think so many people like will fight the process, but they expend so much energy and they don't learn. They don't learn. Like you've learned so many. We talked about grit. You talked about grit, and you just learned so much in your process. And I really feel like in my heart that if we learn, we go through processes all the time, but if we can learn from our process, then we won't repeat the problems that we've had, but instead use it as a part of our grit, like you talked about.
Exactly.
And have like this positive mindset. It's always like active, and it's not a closed or limited, or fixed. They call fixed mindset.
Yeah.
It's like an active mindset, and yeah. I think it's active. I'm not sure. I was listening to a parenting podcast about that.
Well, you're right. It's similar to going to the gym, and that positive mindset. If you're not exercising those thoughts, those feelings, you're not going to be in a positive state. It's like those people that exercise the negative, which I'll be truthful, as you heard it here, is I was exercising those mindset, but then I was turning back around and going, hey, how could I exercise it in a positive way? And that's hard to do. And that was from my therapy, and that was cleaning that up. And to anybody listening, is if you're in a tough spot right now, like there's so many people mentally in a tough spot, which is totally fine. There's like I'm saying, there's so many outlets right now that if you're feeling down, like click on motivational YouTube videos, or if you really think you need help, like go my route, get into therapy. It's nothing like I'm a huge advocate on that, because it's like, you want to be the healthiest form, not just, physically, you want mentally and at the soul level. And it's just,
blind.
yeah, exactly.
You can't be like physically healthy and be mentally unhealthy,
Exactly.
They all have to be, you have to work on all those facets, your spiritual, we believe in our spiritual, health too. So you always have to, I agree. I totally agree. And I think that too, what I like about the bright side of COVID is that we're slowing down and we're actually reflecting, I think that, especially here in Southern California, you just get so busy that you are always going, but not reflecting, and not learning, and just, it's not, life is not a checklist. It's
exactly
like learning, like you talked about. And I love that when you said learning through the process. Was it learning through the process that you talked about?
Yeah.
Or embracing the process, embracing the process and learning from it, and I love our decision. And I think a podcast is coming.
And to add to that real quick is, we live in a culture where there's no disconnect. We're always connected, right? We're connected to our cell phones, or we're connected to, TV shows, or, whatever we're connected to. Just realize there's time to disconnect. And even I'll share this week is like, the last 2 weeks have been running and gunning. Like, I've been working nonstop as an essential worker at Whole Foods, which is, I'm so thankful to have a job. And to anybody that doesn't have a job, like, I feel for you, I'm, feeling for you guys. But there is so much opportunity and growth out there to maybe, like you're saying, reflect and introspect your life and say, like, what do I want out of it? Maybe you did lose your job, but maybe, like we're saying, surrender to your process, and maybe it's time to try something else. Right. But also, exactly. And that those disconnect days are vital, because they get you back on track. They get you to realize, like, the world, matters a lot, but if you're drained, you can't do the things you want to do. So, and if you're getting drained out on the wrong things that we're connected to, like you're saying, is like, go, we gotta get home, cook dinner, to do this, it's like your mind's always like, and
I think too, like, along what you're saying is, if we keep on connecting, we're going to be distracted,
Exactly.
And we need to disconnect so that we can connect with ourselves and other people,
So my disconnect day is tomorrow, believe it or not. It's been I wouldn't say rough 2 weeks, but it's, and what that means to me is, off Instagram, and just doing what I want to do, and being I think my biggest thing, and maybe you could touch on it too, is we're not used to disconnecting. So when we do, it's like, I need to be doing this. Oh no, I've slipped through the cracks. But to give yourself some grace in that disconnection, and like you're saying, to really know yourself. And the more you disconnect, the more comfortable those experiences get. And that will only help you with the connected moments.
Yeah, I think so too. That's so well said, and I think that, when we disconnect is when we reconnect with, like, what our real passions are, and I really feel like everybody has passions, and multiple passions, but if you don't have time and you're just going to thing to thing to thing to thing, you're not gonna connect with those, and those are what's really gonna, like, feed your soul,
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
So, I love it. All right, well, your podcast to be, I feel like. but it's been so great talking to you about, your experiences and your life lessons, and the food industry is so interesting. And remind us again where the book that we talked about last episode, I did not put that.
Oh yeah, it's called Thanks 1,000.
Oh yeah, I love that. Oh my
And
gosh,
it's a process of thanking everyone that made your cup of coffee.
I love that. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm gonna give that. I'm gonna have to reach out to the author. Maybe she'll be, or he will be on my book.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
And then water. Oh my gosh, you're traveling, and all of the lessons that you've learned and all of the wisdom that you have, that you like give back to travelers. It's really a gift.
Yeah.
And the water is a big gift.
Yeah.
So if you need to, I mean, if you need to, but when you realize you need to get better water, as I drink Pellegrino,
Okay.
this is not the water we're talking about here. This is probably in cases is more than 3,000.
There it is.
There you go.
Cheers.
But reach out to John, reach out to him on his Instagram, reach out to him and tell him that you loved our show. Subscribe and look out for John and his upcoming podcast. We're gonna have to talk about that later. I don't know if you have time. That would not be disconnecting now, would it? More connecting.
Add something else, right?
I know. Oh my gosh, but it's such a joy to have you on our show today, and I just enjoyed talking to you so much, and I hope that our paths cross again. Well, they will with water soon. I have to make that connection so that we can connect with water.
Thanks so much, Kristin, and thanks on the bright side for having me for a second episode. Feel so grateful to join you guys today, share more. And like Kristin said, if you guys want to reach out, it's at Globetrot John on Instagram. Thanks, for having me. And let's keep our spirits high, everyone. We're in this together, and let's keep everything flowing.
Yep. And build bridges to your community. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And if you missed out on John's first episode, you need to go see it again. Yay. Or see it again. Maybe you see it.
Yeah.
And after you see this episode, you need to tell your friends and family because this is a great episode. We have so much to talk about. It's so
I know.
We're going to have to do this again.
Yeah.
I'll probably get network notes, but it's my show. Just kidding. Kind of. Oh, thank you so much, John. It's been so much fun. Say hi to your family, my family too. Give them hugs.
Yeah.
And I look forward to having you again.
Thanks so much, Kristin. Appreciate you guys.
And thank you for sharing your story with our audience because there's so much gems and wisdom. I can't wait to hear about your book. You're going to have a book. There's so many things. I'm not helping you with disconnecting. You can think about it off into the future. And thank you for joining us on this episode of The Bright Side, and stay home, be safe, and hoping you can look at today and every day on the bright side of life. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.